Welcome to Key Tech. Please describe this channel if you are interested in today's video. On December 2nd, the relevant U.S. departments issued a new round of chip export bans to China, covering a wide range of about 140 Chinese entities. It should be noted that this is the third large-scale blow in the past 3 years. Immediately after the United States issued relevant controls, China strengthened the announcement of export controls on relevant dual-use items to the United States, including strict control of end users and end-use reviews of gallium, germanium, superhard materials, graphite, etc., including any country and region. At this time, the G7 could not sit still. During the G7 foreign ministers' meeting, they shouted to China across the air, hoping that China would not control related products. The reason given was that China's control measures this time would cause tension in the global supply chain. Of course, these words are not just for their own concerns, although China's control will indeed cause a huge gap in their key raw materials, causing the shutdown of many related industries. But what they really care about is another point, that is, any country, region, or individual who violates the relevant regulations will bear certain responsibilities. Why do they care about this? Because as an ally of the United States, they need to actively or passively consider the interests of the United States in semiconductors to a large extent. If China's export control this time is only aimed at some specific American companies, then they can completely bypass the ban and exploit the loopholes in the ban to make China's export control a decoration for the United States. Or in other words, at the beginning, they did not care much about China's control on rare earths, graphite and other aspects last year, just with such a loud calculation. As a result, they never thought that now the loopholes can't be exploited. China is quite strict about the final review use. Once it involves the bottom line of China's export control, these so-called allies will also pay a price for helping. With their backs cut off, they will naturally anxiously call on China not to impose restrictions. And China has also responded positively to such a request. The general meaning is that the blockade in the chip field was originally led by the United States. In addition, a soul-searching question was raised to the United States and Western countries. Why does the United States think it has the right to deprive China and other countries of their rights in semiconductor development? This question is really not wrong. You must know that the United States has always used its technological advantages to implement hegemony in the global semiconductor field in the past, and countless companies have suffered from it. Later, they even stretched their hands further, not only attracting countries such as the Netherlands and Japan to restrict Chinese companies together, but also pulling Mexico, India, and other popular places for Chinese companies to invest into the courtyard walls. This also indirectly shows that China has been unable to tolerate the cheap control issued by the United States this time. If they do not intend to have a good talk, then even if more countries stand up to ask China to stop controlling, China will still have this tough attitude. To some extent, their pressure is ineffective. Perhaps it is such a tough attitude that they are completely confused after such a soul-searching question. Among them, the American media could not help but shout anxiously that China has set a precedent for prohibiting foreign companies from selling products to American companies. The U.S. media statement this time may have two purposes. The first is to warn the United States to stop. With China setting such a precedent, China's countermeasures may be even more severe in the future. It should be noted that as early as the day when China released its control measures, some U.S. media complained that the United States did not understand China's hints and put restrictions on its own, which led to China's ruthless control behavior. Another purpose is the same as the G7's purpose, hoping to put China on the fire. After all, in their cognition, all their restrictions are to ensure the interests of their own companies and their own technological advantages. But if China imposes restrictions on the outside, then China will undermine the stability of the supply chain and weaken their related development in the semiconductor field. Yes, this is their usual style, putting all the responsibilities on a victim to show how legitimate their restrictions are. That's why they intend to use smearing methods to force China to compromise when pressure and demands are ineffective. To be honest, this calculation is really not well played. Up to now, can't they see a glimpse of signs from China's tough attitude? What they need to understand is that if they continue to abuse their cheap hegemony, China will continue to fight them to the end. And the trump card in China's hand is just the tip of the iceberg, and the outcome will be reviewed over time. Finally, how do you analyze the attitude of the U.S. media after China's response? Welcome to leave comments, likes and shares.